The Sultanate of Oman and Burkina Faso have signed 3 investment cooperation agreements covering various economic sectors. Inked in Ouagadougou, the agreements were signed by Oman Investment Authority and representatives of economic sectors in Burkina Faso. The first agreement was signed to establish a joint venture in the gold mining sector. The second agreement was signed by parties concerned to establish a comprehensive investment partnership in different economic sectors. The third agreement pertains to investing in a number of agricultural sectors, including the cultivation of rice cultivation and some strategic crops. The agreements were signed by Abdul Salam Mohammed Al-Murshidi, chairman of the Oman Investment Authority, OIA, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré, Burkina.
Breaking news. A figure so massive, so unimaginable, that it has left analysts stunned. $14 trillion. A secret deal whispered about in corridors of power. And at the heart of it, Africa. Tonight, we ask, what could a $14 trillion arrangement between Burkina Faso and Oman mean for the world? Why is the West so nervous? And could this mark the beginning of a global power shift unlike anything we have seen in a century? This is not just about money. This is about history, pride, and the rise of Africa as a force that can no longer be ignored. For too long, Africa has been seen only through the lens of exploitation. For too long, decisions affecting millions on the continent were made in faraway capitals in Europe and America. But change is in the air. Across Africa, nations are demanding independence, political, economic, and cultural. Burkina Faso, a country that has stood up boldly against foreign interference, and Oman, a Gulf nation with centuries of trade links to Africa, are now at the center of this story. Whether rumor, reality, or possibility, the very idea of a $14 trillion pact has sent shockwaves around the world. And make no mistake, the West is watching nervously. Because if Africa can command wealth on this scale, the old rules of global power may no longer apply. Stay with us as we uncover what this deal could mean, why it matters, and why Africans everywhere, especially in the diaspora, should pay attention. What exactly is this supposed $14 trillion deal? The truth is, details are scarce, but the whispers alone are powerful. Imagine an alliance built around resources: gold from West Africa, oil and gas from the Gulf, new trade corridors connecting the Atlantic coast to the Arabian Sea. Imagine agreements that bypass the dollar, instead using gold, local currencies, or digital trade platforms linked to BRICS nations. $14 trillion. That number dwarfs the annual GDP of entire continents. It suggests infrastructure projects, resource exchanges, military cooperation, and financial systems designed to keep Western banks on the sidelines. For Burkina Faso, a landlocked country often overlooked, such a deal represents more than money. It symbolizes independence, a declaration that Africa can negotiate on its own terms, not as a subject of the old colonial order. For Oman, the Sultanate sits at a crossroads of global trade. For centuries, its merchants connected Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. A partnership with Africa revives that legacy, one rooted not in colonization, but in exchange. Is this deal truly real? Or is it a projection of what could come as Africa and the Gulf draw closer? That question remains unanswered. But in geopolitics, perception is power. And already, the perception is clear: Africa is moving. The West may not be able to stop it. Why would the West panic? For decades, Western powers have depended on Africa's raw materials: gold, oil, cobalt, uranium, cocoa, and so much more. Yet, in return, Africa received little: debts, instability, and foreign interference. Now, imagine those resources flowing east and south instead of north and west. Imagine Africa and the Middle East working hand in hand, setting prices, controlling supply, and refusing to trade in U.S. dollars. That alone would shake global markets. But the threat goes deeper. Western influence over Africa has always relied on division. Divide countries, divide regions, and then control them separately. But if Burkina Faso and Oman, two nations not usually in global headlines, can create such a powerful narrative, what happens when bigger players join in? South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Angola, Algeria add their voices, and suddenly Africa is not a pawn but a player. The West fears a domino effect. If one deal shows Africa can rise independently, others will follow. And in a world already seeing BRICS challenge the dollar, any new bloc that includes Africa and the Gulf could tilt the balance of global power permanently. So yes, the West is worried, nervous, even panicked, because the days of easy dominance are slipping away. Africa is not waiting for permission to rise. It is happening now. From young entrepreneurs building tech hubs in Nairobi and Lagos, to soldiers and politicians in Burkina Faso rejecting foreign interference, to cultural waves spreading through music, film, and fashion, Africa is reclaiming its story. The diaspora feels it too. From the streets of London to New York, from Paris to Toronto, Africans abroad are reconnecting with their roots, proud of a continent that refuses to be silent. A $14 trillion deal may or may not exist in the form we imagine, but the symbolism is undeniable. It represents what Africa could do if it unified its wealth. It represents what Africans in the diaspora dream about, a continent that is respected, not exploited. Look at the BRICS movement. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These countries are creating alternatives to the old Western-led order, and more African nations are applying to join. They want trade, investment, and cooperation without lectures, without strings attached. Burkina Faso's defiance, Oman's bridge building, and the whispers of this $14 trillion arrangement all point to one message. Africa is not weak. Africa is not dependent. Africa is powerful. And that is why the West is nervous. Because once Africa fully recognizes its own strength, nothing will be the same. Picture the future. Imagine Africa controlling its resources, setting its own terms, building its own alliances. Imagine a continent that does not wait for aid but demands fair trade. The West will not give up easily. Expect pressure, sanctions, propaganda. But the tide of history cannot be stopped. Every empire that rose believed it would last forever. Yet history shows that power shifts. Once it was Rome, then Spain, then Britain, then America. Today, the shift is toward multipolarity, many centers of power, not one. And in that future, Africa must have a seat at the table. Deals like this, whether real or rumored, show what is possible. They show that Africans are thinking big. 14 trillion big. For the diaspora, this is a call to action. Support African businesses. Invest in African projects. Share African stories. Because the rise of Africa will not only change the continent, it will change the world. This is only the beginning. The whispers of a $14 trillion secret deal may be speculation, but the fear in the West is real. The pride in Africa is real. And the determination of Africans, at home and abroad, is unstoppable. The question now is simple. Are we ready to step into this moment? Share this video. Join the conversation. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe Africa's time has finally come? The world is watching. The future is unfolding. And Africa is rising.
Welcome to African Spotlight 24, your premier source for news and current affairs from across the continent. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and turn on notification to stay up to date with the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us reach more people. Disclaimer: the content of this video is based on credible, publicly available information and is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. African Spotlight 24 does not promote hate, violence, misinformation, or political unrest. Our goal is to deliver thoughtful insights, highlight local voices, and encourage informed conversations throughout Africa.